before we start turn two, it's important to recognize that there were no rules in the basic game concerning how to do either fording of a waterway or else in placing a bridge over the waterway. Neither are there standard mechanics for this in the advanced game. However, the advanced game, well, before I drill into the details, let's just talk about the advanced game for a moment. There are two parts to the advanced game. First, how to run a Kriegspiel in general, and then second, the mechanics that apply specifically to the game. And then I guess there's a third piece as well, which are mostly contained in Volume 2, which are all these statistical tables and things that I'm not showing you on the screen yet. But I did want to walk through some rules on the advanced game, about 5 of them, to kind of talk about where Totten's head was at as far as how referees ought to approach this game. So if you come here to page 94 of the PDF to section 322, it says, in the advanced game of war, uncertainty is basically always going to be present. And that even though there are tables that give approximations of the chance of success, which then allow the referee to multiply together the ratios given from various circumstances to arrive at a total ratio and then make a roll of the dice to determine success. Even though that's true, everything isn't covered in the rules. Let's flip forward to page 105 real quick. So on page 105 in section 345, it does say that the referee's decisions are final, right? There are no disputes at the tabletop. Disputes happen after the game is wrapped up during the after action portion. Page 112, let's take a look at what it says about the referee. Page 112, section 369, actually it's on page 111. So the referee hands out instructions to the commander-in-chief, basically to the participants, to the players, right? But if you look at the footnote, it says, hey, even though the advanced game has certain scenarios presupposed within it, and then here we flip over to page 112, there are special operations of war that could each have their own game, as for instance, a convoy game, a game of the advanced guards, an outpost game, a city, mob, or street fight game, right? This is a rule set from 1880, remember? The special rules of which come directly from the character of the prototype, in other words, the advanced game, while some general method of using the tables, rules, etc., given in this volume will apply, subject only to such simple alterations as the nature of the special case and the opinion of the referee may demand, right? So I probably read that entire sentence with the wrong emphasis, but the nuts and bolts of it are that this advanced game, once you understand conceptually what it can be used for, along with the statistical tables and the referees and the participants' expertise in military operations, allow you to play any number of games, including a street fight or a mob. I found that to be quite interesting. Okay, let's flip backwards now to another footnote that we're going to see on page 80 of the advanced game. So flipping backwards, page 80, section 287. Table I will be found to be of great convenience for the reference in these premises. By no means covers all the cases liable to arise in action, but to say the least, it is suggestive. In all such cases, a large discretion must be exercised, and when tabulated data do not exist or are inadequate, the referee must originate. I'll leave it to your own good sense to read this entire section from 284 to 287, but essentially it says that there are going to be points that people don't agree upon about the possibility of doing this thing or that thing. Let's flip to page 105 now and see what it says in another footnote as well. The skillful exercise of the important office of the referee requires not only special aptitude, but it is indispensable that he should be thoroughly familiar with the principles and methods of the game. It says that he should bear in mind the principle that anything can be attempted, And this is what the basic expert talks about. This is what many people have really honed in on when we're talking about Dave Wesley and Dave Arneson. Anything can be attempted. The advisability of the attempt is another thing. And that is the object of the war game, to make evident to all concerned by results. So the referee takes input from the players. He takes the tables, the statistics embedded in this game. He takes the overall scenario, all the conditions in mind, and then he makes a judgment call about what to do about assigning a ratio of things as to whether they'll be successful or not. And then finally, let's take a look at page 94, section 321. In spite of all the skill with which it is planned and the determination with which its execution is attempted, there enters necessarily into every elementary attack made during an engagement a certain unknowable element which is entirely beyond control. Of the chances of victory in any particular case, an able leader may perhaps be more or less sure, but from them no mortal can ever eliminate that ultimate uncertainty for which the gods of wars turns the scale to suit other ends than those of earthly strategists. Whether, therefore, we call it fate or by any other name, it is above and beyond the domain of fixed science and is ruled, no doubt, by similar laws to those which govern the gambler's die. And when once that die is cast, sorry, I fumbled over my reading there as well. So in totality, there were no rules about fording a river or emplacing a pontoon bridge over it. So on table G, we see the time required for various purposes. And I'm going to scroll right down here to item 42, pontoon bridge, train at hand and operations ready to begin. So you roll up there with your pontoons and you've got your engineers. 2 to 3 yards a minute can be completed. Let's look at number 46. Repairing such a bridge, 2 to 5 minutes. Okay, what does that mean? We don't know yet. And then let's look over here at 99, burning a wooden bridge, each 50-foot section, case 5, table H. Oh, good, that gives us another reference to look at. Table H, case 5. 1/2 an hour burning is generally sufficient to render a bridge without repairing impassable to an enemy. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're starting to get some rules. We're starting to get some mechanics based on historical evidence. This is a quotation to a particular military reference work. Now let's look down further on table H to number, well, let's go up here to number 1 first. So when it says the bridging operations, right? How many wagons? 78 wagons carry 32 pontoons that can construct 300 yards of a bridge. And this requires 1 company of engineers, 150 men and officers. Interesting. Now let's look down here at the bottom. For fords, look, there's an entire section here on fords. There's a section on ice here for those of you that like Ridley Scott and the movie that I have not yet seen, but let's look here to fords. Depth of stream fordable by infantry. If the current is gentle, you get an extra foot. If it's not gentle, 3 foot. Artillery, 2 foot. If it's gentle, 2 foot 4 inches. If it's gentle, 3 foot. If you've got to lift stuff up. Cavalry, 4 foot 4 inches. Your cavalry generally can ford even a swiftly moving stream because of the strength of the horse. And then number 11 here, passage of fords. Infantry makes the best progress. Cavalry next. Artillery slowest. So that talks to me about the speed of making a ford. Although I'm not going to factor that into the basic game. If I was doing something regarding the advanced game, I would even look at the rate it takes to pass troops over based on their troop category. All right, let's flip forward now to table I. We're still getting information. Table I, once again, this is one of the tables that I read you a little bit of information about. Let's look at numbers 20 and 21. Cases 20 and 21 have to do with the passage of fords. This one is if you're opposed by skirmishers in a small detachment in good position. It gives the odds 2 to 1. If you are supported, though, in good style from the hither side, in other words, your side of the stream, you've got support from people that can also lay down fire and suppress those skirmishers that are opposing you, then your odds become even. If it's hotly contested on the opposite bank by hostile artillery or infantry or both, that's not answered by you, it's going to be 4, 5, or 6-1. And my assumption is that 4 means if you don't have any support and you're hotly opposed by artillery, that's 4-1. If you're hotly opposed by infantry, 5-1. If both artillery and infantry are over there, that's 6-1 against you, right? But if you've got support now, no matter what, if you're assisted by infantry and artillery, if you've got both of these types of support, then the odds drop down there to 2-1. Does that mean that if you've got some other kind of support or only one of these, maybe it's 3-1? I don't know, but we're getting the statistics that we need to make judgment calls and actually put together an actual set of game mechanics. And then also it's important to look at the note here on the side where it says that basically, if you're opposed by skirmishers and small detachments, when you make a successful passage in the face of that opposition, the troops reach the opposite bank, suffering more or less in organization. Case 6, table S. And then extraordinary opposition. Again, we're referred to case 6, table S. What's that all about? Well, table S, chance of success. Case 6, it lays out the different morale states of the troops. In this game, morale can go from basically being flushed with victory, highly enthusiastic. You can be unaffected, right? And then you can go down to somewhat shaken, badly shaken, disordered, in great confusion, routed, and totally routed. Well, that's important to know. I might turn that into some kind of mechanic. I'm going to ignore these statistics over here. And then I think we've also got table L to look at here. Table L, duration, like how long does this morale condition last after it's put into place? Well, holy cow, we've got a table that covers that too. What if there was actually a ferry in operations? Doesn't apply to my scenario, but they don't have information about loading a ferry, but what they do have here are statistics, very good statistics from time motion kind of studies. Remember, 1880s, but we have plenty of data from the Civil War and other military operations around the world, mostly in Europe, that loading freight cars. Here's how much it takes time-wise to load up your battery of artillery or battalion of cavalry. So if I had a ferry that was in operation, I could even use data that's contained in this appendix. All right, enough monkeying around with this. One last word on Charles Totten's genius here. Even though he didn't have a 1d12, what he ginned up was a top, a spinning top called a teetotum that could arrive at 12 different answers. And so he created a D12 matrix. And it basically says, hey, if the ratio is 5-2, for instance, 5-2, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pluses, and then 2 minuses, and then these others would be an indeterminate result, meaning that perhaps the activity continues until the next time when you make another check until you finalize the result, or maybe you re-roll immediately. But the long and the short of it is, he already gave us the ratios, the chances of success, chances of failure, and indeterminate results. All right, let's wrap this part of it up and let's flip to my favorite note-taking application. So what have I found here? So to drive the general engagement, I'm going to have one piece of, once you get to the general engagement phase of the war game, every turn that passes, the Confederates will give up a piece of baggage if the Union has made a crossing and have forces on the other side. If the Union has not made the crossing yet, they're the ones giving up baggage. And there are only 24 pieces of baggage to get up. And oh, by the way, Union forces, those baggage, that baggage is necessary for you to emplace pontoon boats or replace pontoons. And oh, by the way, Mr. Confederate, if you want to erect additional fortifications, you need baggage to do that as well. So this will drive both teams in the scenario that I'm designing to actually complete what they are attempting to do, which is force crossing or oppose a crossing over the Chattahoochee. Okay, so table H we see right here. So there's enough material for 150 yards with 39 wagons, 16 pontoons. I've got this in case later it factors into the minis that I'm getting. Pontoons, again, 2.5 to 3 yards per minute. The Chattahoochee, I'm going to say, is 150 yards wide at the crossing points. A turn is 5 minutes long, so that's 50 to 60 minutes to complete the bridge. And I just turned that into, okay, starting the 10th turn that your engineers are in placing a bridge, there's a 1 in 3 chance that that turn is the turn that wraps it up. So by turn 12, you're probably going to be wrapped up with your bridging operation. But oh, by the way, there were even statistics in Totten for how slowly your engineers will behave if they happen to be trying to do bridging operations, if they're, or any other operations, by the way, if they're under fire. If they're under heavy fire, it's twice the time to complete. Let's see. Burning a wooden bridge, we already talked about. So I've added in that if infantry or cavalry is in contact with the bridge for 1 turn, they can light the fire. And it can be extinguished as long as the people that set light to it are no longer in control of it. You know, in other words, they're not able to place fire or directly occupy the bridge. Extinguishing the fire, you know, basically you can start the second turn and there's a 1 in 6 chance decreasing every turn that you can turn it out. To repair the bridge, 1 baggage. Okay. Fording a river without the pontoons. Again, I'm just taking the data that was there and I turned this into a matrix for the ferry sites. So if you recall, there is a ford site at the base of the Soap Creek where it crosses the Chattahoochee, which used to be Isham's Ferry. And then it turns out there was actually like a set of rocks that were used for fishing nets or something like that that were there that made it easier to cross. Anyway, at the ferry sites, my assumption is that the condition of the river is unknown. So I created a simple matrix, right? The height of the water and the swiftness of the current. And basically you'll roll a D6. So the Union side could attempt to make a crossing at one of the ferry sites, either the one all the way up river at Thompson's Ferry, not Thompson, sorry, Johnson's Ferry, or all the way down river on this map at Powers Ferry. But that incurs some risk because it may not be crossable or it may only be crossable by cavalry. Lastly, yes, I kind of figured out the odds. So taking those odds of making the crossing, right? So 4 to 1, 5 to 1, 6 to 1, even odds, and 2 to 1 odds. Again, we're going to roll a 1d12, and you have to exceed the target number, meet or exceed the target number to succeed, right? Instead of using Totten's Appendix I table, I have just created my own table for the odds that replicates that. If you end up with 4 to 1 odds, you know, you've got to roll a 7. I guess I should go ahead and put in the 3 to 1 odds because I think I like having that as an option now. So anyway, if you miss your roll, right, this is for doing the ford at the Soap Creek location. If you miss, then we look at how much you either exceeded or fell short the number of pips. We will then assign a morale condition, and then in line with the effects in table S and the durations in table L, we will now have results that may be bad for your unit. Your unit might actually be totally routed by this badly bungled attempt to cross, or you might be flushed with victory and actually push off people out of the area of the bridgehead. So anyway, I've prattled on and on now, but I wanted you to see how much depth there is to the game, what it's like to actually make some design decisions and come up with something that's usable at the table, right? If I'm doing the crossing here at Soap Creek, I look at the odds depending on what kind of opposition they have and what kind of support I have. I come up with an appropriate ratio. I roll a d12. I consult how much I won or lost by. I adjust my morale condition and apply an effect. If I'm up here at a ferry site, I got to decide, is this even crossable? And if so, if I was playing the advanced game, I would assign the infantry a faster crossing than cavalry and cavalry faster than artillery. Okay, that's it. Rattled on way too much. Talk to you later.